when it comes to marketing to the healthcare channel, especially in this current political environment where things are rapidly changing, one thing to know is that there's a lot of regulatory hurdles and guardrails around what we can and can't say. There are certain platforms where we can and can't advertise to healthcare providers.
Welcome back to Social Media for Social Impact. I'm excited to have one of our special guests today. I'm joined by Francis Ukpolo, someone who brings together two industries that don't often overlap, biotech and digital creation. By day, Francis works in the biotech industry where data-driven decision-making is everything. By night, he's a digital creator, founder of Afro, building content that connects culture, identity, and creativity. We met as our worlds aligned in the world of health, wellness, and the medical space. And I'm excited to dive in and hear how one person navigates both worlds and what that means for the future of social media and social impact. Francis, thank you for being on the show today.
Thanks for having me, Misha. Glad to be here.
So, Francis, can you walk us a little bit through your career and what you're up to as of now and give our listeners a peek into your career journey?
Yeah, of course, I'll be happy to. So my career is an interesting one. I've worn many hats and been in a lot of different companies, gained a lot of really good experience along the way. But I really started my career wanting to pursue a career in filmmaking, actually. So I went to Columbia College in Chicago, where I studied filmmaking. And in the process of doing that, I really got a sense to understand some of the creative work and the behind the scenes that goes into production. And not only that, just really also understand the cross-functional collaboration that a director, which is exactly what I was studying, that a director needs to have that cross-functional collaborative skills to manage a project, see it all the way through, understand each department's world, if you will, and be able to communicate to them effectively. So I felt from attending a film program, I was able to pick up a lot of useful skills that I still leverage today in my career. Moving on to that, I actually got a job in a consulting firm in Chicago called Amgen Consulting. And I started as a media production slash graphic designer. And from there, I got a chance to work very closely with the marketing team. And just something about who I am as a person, my nature, I always like to understand the strategy behind everything. I need to understand the why behind what I'm doing. And I felt like I was missing that as a graphic designer, media designer, where I was almost like being dictated or told by the marketing team, like, hey, we need this, or I need you to change the design and put the logo here, put the call to action over here. And I'm like, wouldn't it be more impactful if we did it the other way around? So I had a lot of questions. I was very curious and I wanted to learn more. So I decided, I was like, hey, marketing actually sounds like a really nice career path that I'll be interested to learn more. So I pursued my education a little bit further, went ahead and got a master's in business marketing and started working in that field. And I found my way into the healthcare space, which I feel was like in alignment with me because a lot of my family members are already in the healthcare space. So really able to pick their brains and understand how to achieve my goal from a marketing perspective. So that's been super helpful.
I love that. And Francis, I know you're currently at Amgen in biotech, but you also are a content creator with a huge presence online. Can you share your journey into these two very different spaces?
Sure. So as a content creator, I feel like that kind of came about from just my passion. I'm a creative person by nature and my passion for photography, for media production. I have a background in that. That's like how that came about. I always like to keep my pencil sharp. On my spare time, on weekends, I'm out there creating content or just capturing really nice photography for my personal use. But I feel like there's a very close correlation between being a content creator and being a digital marketer. With content creation, your goal really is to engage your audience with compelling content, right? And as a
Mhm.
digital marketer, you're putting out brand messaging in an effort to engage your audience, engage your customers with the key message pillars that are going to drive business growth. So there's that thinking there that I feel like there's very close correlation between the two. And I feel like that's how it works hand in hand.
I absolutely love that. And you've worn different hats in the healthcare space. Can you talk a little bit about your current role and what you do right now and tie that into how you're using digital and social media to really drive social impact?
Sure, yeah. So currently, I'm an omnichannel lead for my team at Amgen, and basically, it's digital marketing to keep it simple. And what I'm really responsible for is driving customer engagement with digital content, whether that be emails or programmatic banners or social media ads or specific custom programs to HCPs. That's like my wheelhouse there and what I'm responsible for. So, in my current role at Amgen, we're exploring the use of social media to drive social impacts because, for example, I spoke about our customers being doctors, right? Specifically oncology doctors. And oncologists, they're human beings as well, too. Everyone is active on social media to some extent. We see that a lot of our customers are actually even more active on social media than they are on other programs which we may target them with. One thing that we've been exploring is how can we reach our HCPs through social media and also be able to track the effectiveness and tie that back to the success of the campaign, right? Because you can disseminate your messaging through social media, but if you're not being as targeted as possible and if you can't report back on it and share with your external or an internal stakeholders, then it's almost like a wasted effort or a wasted marketing effort. Being able to track is very important for us. We're actually using a tool, a third-party tool that allows us to do just that, where we can track which of our HCPs are engaging with our creative messaging on social media. So that's one way that we're using to drive growth there. So far, we've seen very great engagements, which has led to adoption of our therapy and also ultimately impacting our patients' lives.
Wonderful. And for those of us who are listening, HCPs are healthcare providers, and a big part of the work Francis is doing is engaging those. And Francis, you and I have worked for the same company, and we were very involved in marketing and creating campaigns that resonate with the HCPs, the healthcare providers. Can you talk a little bit about the challenges that you face when you're trying to market to the healthcare channel? Because I know it's vastly different from creating campaigns for the consumer channel.
Absolutely. When it comes to marketing to the healthcare channel, especially in this current political environment that we're in right now, where things are rapidly changing, one thing to know is that there's a lot of regulatory hurdles and guardrails around what we can and can't say. There are certain platforms where we can and can't advertise to HCPs. So there's all those considerations and challenges. That's what I'll say is the biggest difference between HC marketing to the healthcare providers and consumers.
And I know you've been working in biotech for many years now, and you're immersed in data and evidence. So, how does that shape the way you think about metrics, analytics, and impact on social platforms?
So on those platforms, we like to put them into two buckets, right? So we have a bucket for awareness focused tactics, which are more like what we call system one messaging, where it's quick hits and we're trying to drive awareness of, let's just say, for example, our drug is now approved for use. We're trying to drive awareness with that messaging. And then we have another bucket, which is more engagement focused, where we wanted to use system two messaging, which is a little bit more complex, maybe dives deeper into the clinical data, the efficacy. So those are two different lenses at which we're looking at our tactics and how we're trying to get our customers to engage on our website.
I think one of the biggest misconceptions in this space is that social media is about viral moments and popular campaigns and working with the most influential accounts online. Do you see opportunities where social media could actually help make science and biotech feel more accessible or human to the public, drive real change?
Absolutely. I'll give you a recent example. So earlier this year, we had huge event in the medical oncology space is called ASCO. And during ASCO, my company, we actually presented clinical data during one of the sessions, and it was pretty compelling. And just from that, we were using some social media listening tools, and we actually saw very strong reactions to our clinical data. There was a lot of positive tweets and posts about our clinical data on social media. And I felt like this was pretty compelling because HCPs are influencing each other, if you will. It doesn't always have to be the largest accounts or the influencers in this space. It could just be the volume of people talking about your products or, in this case, our clinical data. I feel like that really created impact. And we actually saw from that, we saw a huge lift to other tactics like our websites. Our emails were getting clicked on a little bit more just because of all of the excitement and the buzz that was generated initially from social media.
That is so fascinating. You mentioned healthcare providers talking to each other, and the peer to peer element is so important, right? Because there is a credibility and the trust that comes with hearing from a colleague in the space that a specific drug or treatment is effective and working. And it's a tool we can use a lot when we're doing marketing in the HCP space, if you will. So many people feel that science communication gets lost in translation online. I know you're creating mostly content for the healthcare providers themselves, but do you have some ways in which you think creators can make complex topics engaging without?
It's very challenging to put out complex scientific content on social media, for example, right? Because a lot of times with social media, people tend to see it as a quick hit, quick approach tactic to really drive awareness or just to get a customer to quickly engage and maybe even click through to get to the website. But if you're trying to put out really heavy scientific content within that post or platform, it's a little bit tricky and it's a little bit more challenging because you're asking the HCP to spend a little bit more time than they normally would reviewing the post. So what I've seen work effectively is actually having a click through, right? Teasing out the content and then having them click through to a page. And then if you have a really savvy digital marketer, that digital marketer is pixeling that page. So even if the HCP doesn't go through all of the content on that very session, they can follow up with an email to say, hey, this is where you left off, or hey, take a look at the scientific information you were reviewing earlier. Here's a run through of the content or a summary. So I think that there's just various tactics and strategies that you could use to achieve those goals.
Yes, and science communication has real stakes. You mentioned a lot of times there is a big focus on quick hits and likes and comments, but also in the age of AI, misinformation can spread quickly. Do you have an example of a time when you ran into an issue, either on social media or with a campaign, that didn't go as planned and you had to quickly fix it in order to make sure the word didn't spread because you're dealing with lives here? This is very important medical information you're trying to put out there.
Knock on wood, we haven't had a situation like that occur because at Amgen, we're very risk averse. And our organization, our regulatory and legal teams, they're highly skeptical of omnichannel placements for that exact reason. And in addition, whenever we put out a social media post, we actually turn off comments, right? Because we don't want HCPs or perhaps even patients making comments or listing out any adverse effects that they may have experienced from one of our drugs. Because we do have a standard protocol, we have a standard procedure for reporting any AEs, and social media is not the platform to be doing so, which is why we tend to turn off all comments.
This is actually very interesting because it illustrates how different social media marketing is in the healthcare channel compared to the consumer channel. And a lot of people who try work in this space ask me, what type of skills do I need in order to be more evolved in healthcare marketing or land a job in that industry? And it's exactly that. It's understanding the regulatory components of it. It's understanding how to work cross-departmentally with those departments that oversee that. It's a lot of approval processes. It's making sure that you're being very skeptical of all the information that's out there, working with scientists that are trained to do just that. And also in terms of engagement, you want to make sure there isn't any confidential, proprietary, sensitive information that people and patients are sharing online. So I think it's a perfect example of how different this industry is. It comes with challenges, but also it makes it more exciting in a way. And as you alluded to earlier in the conversation, you're curious, you like to be strategic, you want to understand and dive deeper, and that's visible across your career journey. So I know a lot of people are going to have questions about you as a content creator. You have a very unique story about how you first started, and I would love to hear a little bit more about why you started your own channel, what drew you to start Afro Theory, and is there a specific gap you were seeing in the social media space you were hoping to fill?
Yeah. So I actually have a background way back when I was a lot younger. I have a background in fashion, both as a model and both as a stylist, if you will. And it's also part of something that I'm very interested in as a creative overall. I love all different types of art forms. I love engaging in them. I started my social media channels more as an educational tool or resource for people who are looking to do what I have done, which is being a model or starting off into fashion, things like that. So I started that just to put out information just to help guide some of those aspiring artists. And I started to see really strong engagement, and that just gave me the encouragement to keep going. With Afro Theory being someone who's originally from Nigeria, there's a lot of talent in my home country. A lot of people are very skilled with their hands and very skilled with tailoring. And I wanted to start an Afro Theory to really showcase and bring all of that talent and their work to light. And if you look on Afro Theory's website, that a lot of the proceeds goes back to helping the less privileged in Nigeria, which is another thing that I'm pretty passionate about. That's really my story of why I started my social media platforms and the rationale behind it.
That's so fascinating. You mentioned the tie in with social impact and just that give back component, which shows truly people, individuals, and content creators like yourself can do a lot to give back to those communities. What were some of the early challenges you faced as a creator and what kept you going? Because I know you've been working full time, obviously, in your roles and you've been building this amazing presence online.
I think some of the biggest challenges initially was just testing and learning, right? Building an audience, understanding what your audience gravitates towards, what kind of content do they want to see. There was a lot of trial and error, right? And sometimes it could be very discouraging where you spend a lot of time, you create this compelling content, or at least you think it's compelling. You put it out there and you get crickets, right? It's like very
Mhm.
minimal engagements. So that tends to happen. And I see that as a point where a lot of creators tend to get discouraged and they just stop altogether. But I would encourage any creator listening, you just have to keep going, right? It's all about the consistency. As you're putting out consistent content, whatever platform you're on, whether it's TikTok or YouTube or Instagram, the algorithm tends to normalize and really starts to take your channel and your page into consideration just based on your consistent habits. And it starts to serve your content to more audience over time. That was probably the most challenging part for me was just being patient through the process.
Interesting. What types of content have been performing well for you?
So I've put out a lot of different content, mostly around the fashion industry. I've put some nutritional tips and health and wellness tips as well. Those seem to do well on my channel because at the end of the day, it's all related, right? A lot of my audience are either aspiring models or aspiring photographers. So they really just gravitate towards all of that information.
And you bring the credibility having worked in these spaces with big names in the healthcare and nutrition industry. So you obviously also have the trust of your followers, not just because of you being a content creator, but also having that professional background. So I think that's really cool. Do you feel being a creator shaped professional opportunities for you in terms of networking or visibility? Because a lot of people, either my students or clients that I meet, will ask me if I'm a content creator, does that define me? And does that exclude me from some professional opportunities, or do you feel like there's been a synergy there for you?
I feel like there's been a synergy there because at least at Amgen, a lot of people have different interests, different passions, things that they do professionally and outside of work. And I feel like there's really an understanding of the digital omnichannel space. As I mentioned earlier, these two things, they go hand in hand because if you are a content creator, chances are you know how to drive engagements, you know how to get your audience to connect, or you know how to connect with your audience. And as a digital marketer, that's essentially what you're doing as well, right? You're driving
Mhm.
engagement with the customers, you're connecting with them, making sure the messages are memorable and just achieving your goals. So it's related.
Right. Can you walk us through a campaign, a collaboration, or a content piece you're most proud of, either in the biotech space or on your personal channel? And what do you think made it work?
I would say I've had a lot of really neat opportunities to work with bigger brands. Like I've done a collaboration with Nike, for example, a recent collaboration with New Balance and some other brands that are in the fashion industry. And I feel that was fulfilling to me as a creative and also just validating with all of the hard work and effort that I put into building my channels. That was satisfying to see. Professionally, I've had opportunities to work with really top, really smart oncologists and put out some really nice podcasts just like this one or video series to educate their peers and to really just drive home our messaging on our products.
That's amazing. So, if you're looking at creator culture in general, where do you think the real growth will be over the next 5 years?
I think we're really going to see even more adoption with AI tools and technology. I'm already seeing this. I'm sure you are as well. And it almost feels like a cheat code, right? It feels unfair to those true creators who are actually in the lab, writing their own scripts, shooting their own content, sitting in the dark room editing for hours and then doing all of that work, right? Now there's an AI tool for everything. You can generate a script through AI just with a few simple prompts. You can clean out your audio with AI tools. You can edit your video even with AI tools. You can create different formats and get all the hashtags and create thumbnails, everything very easily with AI tools. So I think in the next 5 years, we're going to see a complete transition with creator habits going full.
I definitely see that on my end as well. One of the things I encourage everyone to do, if you have an important message and more important cause you're trying to drive, is be more active on social media, because it can truly be a way to amplify. And with all these new tools, you actually have the opportunity to be much more efficient with some of the tasks, like the editing and like the scripting, things that initially back in the day would cost hours and hours of time. So it's, in my opinion, leveling the playing field, because you can become a content creator and drive message. It's all about also quality, not quantity. I know a lot of folks were chasing the metrics and the number of followers, but Francis, do you think scientists and researchers should be more active on social media?
Absolutely. It gives them a voice and it also gives them an opportunity to learn and connect with their peers. And also, there's a huge collaboration opportunity with social media tools. For example, when I worked at USC, I was part of the digital innovation team at Southern California Clinical and Translational Science Institutes. And that organization exists to accelerate clinical research, and it's backed and funded by the NIH. So while I was on the digital innovation team, we created a tool called USC Profiles. And basically, it's like a social media tool, right, that encourages collaboration. It shows you as a researcher, hey, here are other researchers that are doing a study on perhaps the same topic or has potentially worked with another primary investigator that you've been affiliated with in the past. And the goal of that tool was really just to broaden a researcher's perspective and get them to reach out to other researchers that they may want to collaborate with. I feel like that's where social media comes in, and that's exactly how it could be used. So if a scientist is active on social media, they could potentially find those connections. They could potentially find other people that are passionate about a specific treatment or topic that they're working on. and they could use that as a collaborative medium, if you will.
That's super interesting. And I promise this wasn't a UC plug. I know I'm affiliated with UC, but Francis and I both went to UC at different times. So I truly believe there's a lot of opportunity in the healthcare marketing space. There's a lot of misconceptions that you and I have debunked today. And I hope there's going to be more education around how people can enter these fields because it is truly impacting lives, right? Like you're working on life-threatening diseases and cures and messaging around it. So it is really profound work. Francis, if you had to give one piece of advice to someone who is just starting out their career in digital media and also has this creative side of wanting to be a content creator, what advice would you give them?
I would say that they should stay curious. There's always a better way to achieve your goals. There's always learnings from every project, every success, every failure. Just stay curious and keep going. Don't get discouraged by lack of engagements. If you're a content creator, look at it as a test and learn opportunity. That's something that I typically practice in my field, both on the creative side and also on the professional side. If I'm trying something for the very first time or testing out a vendor for the very first time, I use it as a test and learn. Dabble in it a little bit. Is it working? Is it not working? Why did it work? Why did it fail? You learn from that and you build on that.
So really the A/B testing, but then on your own personal channels. You mentioned Instagram. Are there other channels you're active on? And we can include them in the show notes as well.
For now, it's just Instagram, YouTube. I have a YouTube channel, and then I do some email marketing through my website opt-in.
I love it. Francis, is there anything we didn't cover today that you'd like to share with our listeners?
No, I think we covered a lot, and I'm always open if any of the listeners want to reach out to me with any follow-up questions. I'm happy to respond and share some insights.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Francis, for being here, truly reminding us that impact doesn't come from choosing one lane. It comes from bringing all of who we are to the table, whether it's biotech, digital media, or cultural storytelling. Your work really shows how cross-pollination sparks new ideas and deeper connections. If you want to connect with Francis, you can follow him on Instagram. Thanks so much, everyone at home, for listening. And remember, your influence grows when you connect purpose with passion. Until next time, thanks, everyone.